neighborhood that are in there, in the cul-de-sacs that are right here on the very edge of the property. You also have sirens going in and out all the time with the care facility that's already there. So I don't know that we're necessarily going to have that with a medical office building, but I've lived in New York City before, and I came to Pleasant Grove. Utah's my home. I came back here because I don't want to hear the sirens. And so, again, my intent in sharing this is, are we really going to have office building space? What is the professional decor that they're going to try and put up for that? I know this would be something, again, we're looking at the future. But again, traffic studies, considering any part of the noise that would be in there, if there's anything else that's going to be going on. But I just ask you to take into consideration, I think there needs to be a bit more transparency before a decision is made this evening. You're asking to be able to say, all right, we're going to grant a zoning change right now and make that decision. I think we really need to know fully more what the plan is, see it detailed, see the site plan, and before we make any kind of decision. So those are my thoughts. Thank you. Appreciate it, and have a good evening.
Thank you so much.
I'm Steve Winter, and I live next to it. They tried this 5 or 6 years ago at City Council to change it from to a PO from residential to PO, and the council at the time said they didn't want to create an island, which would create an island if we have them houses down there, because you don't put the houses in that there, so you're going to create an island. I don't know that you really want to create an island. And the one that he was talking about down below, that's already a care center, so that's an R1 anyways. So I think you leave it as an R1 8, and I mean, what's the value of our houses gonna do if you put office spaces in? Is that gonna drop it if we ever decide to move, or is it gonna force us all out? So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Landon DeHaas. You're fine. I just moved into the neighborhood there, where Steve was at. Right there. Hope you don't mind me using the mouse. I've got young kids, and we moved into the neighborhood so that, you know, we could be in a neighborhood and we could have freedom for my kids to play with other kids and things like that. I feel that if we do rezone that and make it to where there's office buildings and things, it's gonna drive up the traffic. It's gonna, people are gonna start using that road in front of my house to get into that area because these other two roads are so packed. I mean, it happened up by my parents' house when they built the baseball fields. They built a bridge, and that road was real quiet, and they built the bridge across it, and then that road just became packed. And they were getting things stolen out of their garages and things like that. That's my concern. I would rather see it be neighborhood and have more houses built there for the public. But yeah, we moved into that area hoping to have it stay somewhat quiet and not be right next to more buildings. And I've seen how much building has gone on in this area over the last few years. I was born and raised in American Fork, and it just, I understand that the community is growing, but seeing more buildings just drives me nuts. And I feel like this area is just becoming offices and things like that. So, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that'd like to come up to the podium? Seeing none, I'm gonna close the public hearing and bring it up to the commissioners for discussion.
Would you like the aerial view, or do you want me to go to the
aerial
actual
view.
aerial map? This is fine? Okay.
ask Aaron a question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Where the previous statement was done, that the young lady who addressed that her property is basically the flag lot there, that her well and her water access is on this other piece of property. Do you know anything about that? What would happen with that? Is there issues there? Or has that been addressed at all or thought about?
I'm not aware of that having been addressed in any way. This is one of the few properties in Pleasant Grove that I haven't personally seen anything on other than this. This is the first thing I've seen on it since I've been here in the 4 years or so that I've been with the city. But regardless of that, if they have an existing well that's on this property, then they have an existing right for that well and all of those sorts of things that would predate any of this stuff. And whatever they do to develop this, they would have to work with that well owner and the person who has the right to that well to make sure that it's either abandoned appropriately or that it's maintained, and then that person would have access to it to work with it. But I'm not aware of all the details of everything that's with that. Same thing with the access. It would be a similar thing. They would have to work with them, make sure that they have access, as access is maintained to their home and things like that as well.
Okay, that was the next question that I had coming up. I assume those are on public sewer, or is that septic?
I am assuming public sewer, but I don't remember off the top of my head.
And private well, one resident well.
Okay. Thank you. I mean, how long has that property been for sale?
A long time, but I don't like having those houses in an island. I don't like that.
I don't like that either. We can't dictate when people buy property, though. And that property's been a sale for a long time and been just an empty eyesore field full of weeds for a considerable time.
Yeah.
It would be nice to have houses, but it's been empty for, I don't know how long. And if nobody's gonna put houses in it, do we leave a piece of property empty? Do we take the opportunity to let it develop and go into tax revenue, which everybody in the city wants lower taxes, and the only way you can lower taxes is to get tax revenue businesses in. I don't know.
And the process is like what was stated before. There's the zone and then there's the site plan. And the site plan's not gonna happen until the zone is approved or unapproved. So if we don't approve it, then the site plan won't happen, and so residents will not know what to anticipate at all.
Yeah, because
So it's just the process. The process is a rezone to allow a developer, whoever they are, to be able to do the site plan according to what they want to do.
yeah, it's tens of thousands for the architect just do the preliminary drawings. Nobody's gonna spend tens of thousands of dollars if they
It's cost
cannot
prohibitive.
proceed. So,
I actually really prefer that they don't have a site plan when we're talking rezone
Exactly.
because of the
Yes.
bias that it causes.
We've had that experience plenty of times.
A nice,
You and
healthy
I.
distrust of developers.
Yeah,
but they're
we've
great
had, we've had,
people. But
we've had that plenty of times.
Yeah.
You and I, Todd, on the 6 years that we've been together. So yeah, there's plenty of distrust without a rezone.
so, I mean, and as we think about this, yes, this might be medical office buildings, but it could be any one of those uses that we had up there that Daniel outlined. And is that the right use for that area moving forward for the progress of the city?
that's the question.
And to have offices there in this 7.5 acres. And looking at the way the city's going and where it is building out, I mean, there's a reason why this hasn't been residential. There's a reason why it hasn't developed. I don't know what those reasons are. There's gotta be one. But I do think that it makes sense to have professional office buildings in this area.
And the zone, the professional offices, they can only do those things. Like its limitations are
Yeah.
very strict by having a professional office.
It was limited to those 20 some odd things or whatever it was. I didn't count them, but it looked like 20 some odd.
Could we have the help of staff to bring up those?
The permitted
The
uses
permitted
in the
uses in the
professional
zone.
office zone.
Also, would you mind verifying what's the maximum height?
Yes, Commissioners, the maximum height for right now, the maximum height you can have in an R18 is 35 feet. The maximum height you can have in a PO is 35 feet.
Exactly the same. And so,
Or 2 stories, 2 stories and 35 feet.
and so we have,
The uses, Jacob, the uses, please.
yeah, it's up, Jacob, right there. Or, yeah, right there.
Where the faxes are.
Right, the fact, yeah.
So the first uses are uses that are in any residential zone, yeah, so
49,
we start from 49,
right
correct.
there. Prescription pharmacy. Financial insurance. So, okay, dwelling, janitorial building services, right? Understanding that, so if it's a cleaning service for dwellings, for home and offices, is that correct on that one?
That it's not to live in, it's to clean the
6340?
dwellings.
6340, they're all 6340 are offices. So that's when like you can go and rent it and run your business from there pretty much.
Okay. So Daniel, can you clarify for us, when it came in 2017, with, at that time, I'm not seeing the opportunity to have a assisted living facility in this classification. Am I misunderstanding that, or have we changed it since then?
Okay, I'll let you know why.
Because that's not in there, nothing.
Yes, because you guys are looking at the list of permitted, and now we're gonna go to conditional uses. Okay, so it's under conditional uses, the last use in the conditional use. There you go, because that zone also allows for hospitals.
Okay,
Keep in mind that 6515 is office only, so there's not like beds or stuff like that permitted. And rest home services, that's what it was.
okay. Conditional use.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha, okay.
Meaning that use is permitted only if certain conditions are met, conditions that we discussed right here in the planning commission.
Correct. So the thought, when it comes to the 35-foot maximum height, I mean, last fall, we approved a rezone for, or that development that's on 1800 North, the cul-de-sac, where they had to infill, right? Driving past those houses right now, I mean, that's a nice, the backyard neighbors are looking right in their first floor. So, and it was permitted. So. Anyway, I've talked enough. Let's continue.
Does anyone have any more questions for Daniel and Jacob?
Jacob, can you scroll up, please, just to see the additional conditional uses? No, just in the conditional uses.
Start from
54.
5441. There you go.
Start from 5441.
Thank you, Jacob.
You guys want to see some of the conditions? Would you guys like to see some of the conditions? Bring me back the commercial bordering residential. You know what I'm talking about? On
Which one?
14? When you have a commercial bordering a residential use?
Yes, I do.
So what you're about to see, commissioners, is they're called transitional development standards for non-residential uses. In this case, PO will be a non-residential use bordering residential zones. So you guys gonna see a bunch of a list of things that will be required for something like this. For example, in this case, I think there's one that requires to be a fence. Can you go to the one that talks about the fence? Like, it's a requirement to get a, whoa, that's making me sick.
Sorry, yeah, that's, this is about as far as it goes. Let me see if I can find that.
Because there is a fence required to separate residential and the commercial
And
use.
is in that part of the code that requires that fence. If it was gonna be residential versus residential, none of this will apply to it. But this is just specific things that, for those conditional use permits, for example, these are the conditions that will be established at the time of it.
I don't see the fence.
So as you guys can read there, like, no other zone will require to have a masonry wall. No, that's what, let me see.
Is it?
That's where the parking lot is, this, yeah.
Mechanical equipment.
Yeah.
So all mechanical has to be on the roof.
Mm-hmm. So again, it's there cannot be no loading docks that you guys can see right there. It talks about the trash containers. That's something that I thought it was brought during the conversation. So there's the noise limits right there, the type of conditions that can be established when you have a non-residential, in this case, a professional office versus a residential zone. And in regards of being open and be clear, we're open and clear. Anything that the applicant has submitted to us, anybody can come and request it, and we'll show it to everybody. There's nothing the staff is hiding or not sharing with the public. Everything that we have, again, this is not our application, it's application from third party. Our job is just to run the application, but everything that the applicant has submitted, residents can come, request for it, and we'll share for sure a copy of that. Okay? So in terms of transparency, as it was mentioned.
And also to add on to these conditions, we also have certain restrictions when it comes to exterior lighting as well. That says it can only be so bright up to, like, the property lines essentially. So that's just another one of the zoning requirements. It's not necessarily even a condition.
Is there any further
Can you go back to
discussion
the
or
zone,
questions?
please, Jacob?
Back to the zoning map?
Yes, thank you.
Chair, I have a question. So, I have noticed that. Okay,
That one not working?
there it goes. I have noticed that, cars park along 1100 right here in front of the dentist office, and it is hard to see, to get out onto the road because of the cars are parked along there instead of in the parking lot, when there is parking in the parking lot. Yeah, can there be no parking along there? Can we get that?
Yes, we'll take care of it. We'll pass it along to people responsible for doing something like that, so we'll share that concern.
Commissioners and members of the commission, that's actually an American Fork City street. We don't own the street, but we can coordinate with American Fork City and work to do something with that. I'm sure they're pretty amenable to work with us, so.
Thank you, Aaron. Okay, no further discussion. Do I have a motion from someone?
Nobody wants to put one forth.
This is the first item. We still got
I'll make a
6 more to
motion.
go.
I move the planning commission forward a recommendation of approval to the city council for the request of Maple Springs of PG Holdings LLC for the rezone of 4 parcels of land equaling a total of approximately 7.53 acres located at 1783, 1807, 1841, and 1855 West, 1100 North, from the R18 zone to the professional office zone, and adopting the exhibits, conditions, and findings of the staff report.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
So I have a motion by Commissioner Fugel and a second by Commissioner Nelson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
We have one. Do we need to do a road call? Okay, we're going to do a roll call.
Aye.
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 Nay.
That motion carries.
And you vote too, Chair?
Oh, I do?
Yeah.
Yay. Okay, moving on. Item number 2. The public hearing is a rezone located at approximately 172 South Pleasant Grove Boulevard, Sam White's Lane neighborhood. The public hearing is to consider the request of Pleasant Grove City for a rezone, or for a zone change from the Grove Zone Commercial Sales Subdistrict to the Commercial Sales 2, CS2 zone, to eliminate split zoning for parcel number 4957900018, located at approximately 172 South Pleasant Grove Boulevard on approximately .70 acres in the Commercial Sales 2 zone and the Grove Zone.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thanks.
It's been a while. So I'm Jacob Hawkins. I'm the city planner for Pleasant Grove. And this item tonight is for a rezone for the property located at 172 South Pleasant Grove Boulevard. And then items 3 and 4 for tonight's agenda are also on the same property, but we'll hear those in a little bit. So here's the aerial map, so we can see where this property is located. So we've got Macy's just off the screen up here. We've got the Green Grove Apartments right here. We've got Tag and Go right here, and we've got the Boulevard Townhomes that are right over here. This is Pleasant Grove Boulevard, and State Street is just up here. And then here is the zoning map. So this entire property is 0.7 acres in size, but the portion that's in the Grove Commercial Sales Subdistrict is only 0.2 acres in size. And so that's what the rezone will be for tonight. So we can avoid split zoning on this property as the subdivision and the site plan are recorded and built. Now, keeping it short, this property is in the State Street commercial designation on the general plan. It's a little hard to see because colors are kind of similar down here, but this little pink area, that's the State Street commercial. It kind of extends just down and includes this property by itself. It's kind of covered up by the little star there, and then it just ends right at the edge of this property. So, funnily enough, the State Street commercial designation here in the general plan includes both the CS2 and the Grove commercial sales subdistricts, and so, and also the general commercial zone as well. Now, this type of designation is intended for auto-oriented commercial uses, including big box shopping areas, gas stations, vehicle repair shops, and drive-through restaurants, which are expected to remain long-term. Going through a couple uses, went ahead and pulled these up. So the uses in both the Grove Commercial Sales Zone and the CS2 zone are extremely similar. If anything, the Grove Commercial Sales Zone is a little bit more general in its categorization. So for example, we've got use 5500, automotive, marine craft, aircraft, and accessories. So like people can sell cars, they can sell boats, they can sell whatever. But whenever we go to the Grove Commercial Sales Zone, if we go to that, it's limited, so it's no longer just 5500, it's 5511 specifically, which is for new car sales. Or if they want to do used car sales, then it's limited for like a certain specific area, essentially. But for the most part, a lot of this stuff is the same because a lot of it is retail in nature. The biggest difference between the CS2 zone and the Grove zone is really when it comes to the design of the buildings and to like the open space and the landscaping and things like that. And the reason for that is because the Grove zone is intended to be the figurative crown jewel of Pleasant Grove, like the first impression that people have whenever they get into the city. And this particular area really is more in like the center of the city, if anything. I mean, let me go to the zoning map right here.
Have you shown, Jacob, let's go back to the zoning map.
This one right here?
The
one that I have
the
in
one
my
in the
staff
staff report.
report.
So the majority of the parcels are already in the CS2.
Yes.
And we actually have approved a site plan in the past in the CS2 zone. And usually by the staff, we usually take the majority of the majority of the land and we just assign that one. but we don't want to have a split zoning. So we cannot go and just rezone the entire thing, the Grove, when we have already approved a site plan that is in the commercial sales.
Right, thank you. Then, yeah, the applicant for the site plan and the subdivision plat intends to develop this land for a commercial building for a couple of restaurants, which we'll hear in a minute. But in the meantime, staff recommends approval of the proposed rezone to avoid the split zoning on the property, and I can take any questions.
Any questions for Jacob? Seeing none. Thank you so
I
much,
have a
Jacob.
question, sorry. I'm slow.
Yeah, you gotta get it, yeah.
I'm sorry. So is it gonna be rezoned to all purple or all orange?
All purple.
All purple?
Mhm.
Okay,
That's the technical term.
all purple. CS2, sorry.
Yeah, the CS2.
So it's a cleanup, house cleaning item for staff.
Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you, Jacob.
thanks.
Is the applicant here today?
The city is the applicant on this one.
Oh, the city is.
Yes, the city is because we want to clean up
So
the.
Jacob, come back up here. No, I'm just kidding, I'm just kidding. This is a public hearing, so I will open it up to the public. Is there anyone who'd like to come to the podium and comment? Seeing none, I will close it to the public and bring it up to the commissioners for discussion.
I'll just make a motion. I move the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the request of Pleasant Grove City for the rezone of .02 acres of land located at 172 South Pleasant Grove Boulevard from the Grove Commercial Sales Subdistrict to the CS2 zone and adopting the exhibits, conditions, and findings of the staff report. There aren't any listed, but yeah, that's my motion.
I second. Good.
Trickler's taking it?
Uh-huh.
Okay. I have a motion from Commissioner Patton and a second from Commissioner Trickler. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Item number 3, the public hearing preliminary subdivision plat located at approximately 172 South Pleasant Grove Boulevard, Sam White's Lane neighborhood. The public hearing is to consider the request of Acres Development Group LLC for a one-lot preliminary subdivision plat named Pleasant Grove Town Center Plat C, located at approximately 172 South Pleasant Grove Boulevard on approximately .70 acres in the commercial sales zone in the Grove Zone Commercial Sales Subdistrict.
Chair, would it be okay to hear items 3 and 4 together?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
awesome.
So also at this time, we're going to hear item number 4, public hearing site plan located at approximately 172 South Pleasant Grove Boulevard, Sam White's Lane. Public hearing to consider the request of Acres Development Group LLC for a commercial site plan to develop a one-story multi-tenant retail building located at approximately 172 South Pleasant Grove Boulevard on approximately .70 acres in the Commercial Sales 2 zone and the Grove Zone Commercial Sales Subdistrict.
Alrighty,
Jacob.
perfect. So we just heard the rezone for this property, and now it's time for the site plan and the subdivision plat. So starting off with the subdivision plat, like I mentioned in the previous item, this whole property is .7 acres in size and is combining like 3 parcels into one lot. Now this property fronts onto Pleasant Grove Boulevard, but access to this property will not be directly from Pleasant Grove Boulevard. Instead, it's going to be coming from that side down over here. And we'll see that here in just a second on the site plan. Actually, just kidding. Let me go to, let's go here. There we go. That's looking a bit better. So we can see here on the aerial map how there's this road that kind of comes through. So this is gonna connect up here to Pleasant Grove Boulevard, and then from here, that's where access to this property is gonna be. They're not gonna get access from this side, because this side is a private road that belongs to the Green Grove Apartments. And what they're gonna do instead, and I'll go to the site plan now, is even though they've got like a little road here, there's gonna be a fence here that blocks off access for like normal traffic from this from the private drive here, from the private road. And it'll be used for like emergency services only. And then if worst comes to worst, then what they can do is we'll have them install like a geogrid thing. It like compacts the ground a lot more, which makes it drivable for fire trucks. And so they can just kind of plow through the landscaping right there if they have to. Because there is landscaping in that particular area, we're gonna make sure that there's no trees or bushes that'll really get in the way, because that wouldn't be fun. But otherwise, yeah, that's the way how the access for this property is gonna end up going. Let's see here. Continuing on with the site plan, though, the required building setbacks, including any area for parking, is 25 feet from the front property line down here. And so this whole section is going to be all landscaping, except for points of access onto the property, meaning that little section right there. There are no other setback requirements for this project, though, as the CS2 zone states that the rear and side yard setbacks are permitted to be reduced to 0 feet when adjacent to a commercial or industrial zone. And then since it's surrounded by commercial zones, it gives them a little bit more room to make this site plan work. But to help out with the smaller setback requirements, there is an existing vinyl fence that was installed with the Green Grove Apartments on this side up here. So that will kind of help mitigate a lot of that difference between the residential use and the commercial use. Now the building will be split up into a couple different units. I don't think I have the floor plan here. Oh, no, maybe it's down at the very bottom. There it is. So we've got two different units. Both of these are going to be for restaurant uses, and each one is going to have their own individual drive-through deal. The parking requirement for restaurants is 1 space for every 3.5 chairs, or 1 to 100, excluding, you know, the kitchen, bathrooms, storage, etc. And so what I did for this one is because we don't have like a detailed floor plan that shows like how many chairs they're gonna have for each individual use. Usually they'll provide that with the building permits. I did a parking ratio of 1 to 100 for the whole building, but then I reserved about 30% of it for what would usually be, you know, like the kitchen or the storage area or anything like that. And so in that particular case, in this case, I required 27 parking spaces on the property, and that's what they got. They got 27. So we're good to go on the parking. Here is the landscaping plan. Like I said, we'll need the applicant to amend this plan to account for the emergency access from Pleasant Grove Boulevard down here in this corner. Just that way they don't find themselves around a tree. But otherwise, the only other requirement that I need to have is they need to have at least 11 trees on the property, based on the ratio of 15 trees per acre of land that they have. So since it's just 0.7 acres, 11 trees, right now they provide for 16. So once again, it'll be amended just a little bit, but we'll make sure that we've got at least those 11. And then lastly, we have the elevation plans. Like I said, the maximum building height for commercial buildings in the CS2 zone is all the way up to 60 feet. In this case, they're not that. They're like 25 feet, I think. Yeah, they're 25 feet tall, 25 feet 2.5 inches to the highest point there. And then there are no requirements for building design in the CS2 zone, unlike in the Grove Commercial Sales Zone. So because of that, they're planning on doing some black painted corrugated metal here. They've got fiber cement siding for here and in this area, and they've got like some EIFS in these areas, and then the rest of it's going to be glass. So, I think that's about everything. So with that being said, I can take any questions. I can scroll through some of these images. Anything you guys need?
So on the site plan, Jacob, if you go there, or that, you stop,
This one?
you can go down one more. So looking at that, even though the public access is gonna be about right here, right?
Uh-huh.
I'm curious about, it looks like that is an exit, even though it's not supposed to be an exit.
The reason,
And the other reason, so wouldn't like parking be a good thing for right here? You can answer the question.
not really, because this is kind of taking a belt and suspenders approach to emergency access, essentially. This is supposed to be the primary way for there to be emergency access, but because this is a private road here, if they decide to just block it off for whatever reason, it's a private road, you know, so we still need to have some sort of access onto here. And so instead of, you know, making, you know, okay, well, the fire truck has to go through the landscaping every time. If there's an emergency, we want the primary thing to be there.
Okay, great. Now, the other question is, because it's two restaurants and just looking at the drive-through plan, you know, my assumption is that, so if you go up the one, so there's a drive-through there, correct? The anticipated drive-through is here.
Yep.
And a drive-through is there.
Yep.
Okay, and so I guess we can ask the applicant about traffic flow and what that looks like.
Got a nice little crisscross there, you see that?
I see the crisscross. Hopefully, the public will
Innovative.
recognize the crisscross too. Those are the only questions I had. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Jacob? Thank you, Jacob. All right, is the applicant here? Maybe you could just state your name for the record.
Tom Longacre with Acres Development Group. So the crisscross you had a question about.
Yes.
It's an interesting development that's taken shape the last few years. It was talked about, you know, how do we make homes pencil or projects pencil? We've probably spent 40 to 50,000 of our dollars to try to come up with a plan for this site that pencils and works, and we need 2 drive-throughs for it to pencil. This project conception to have the 2 drive-throughs we've seen done in various projects down in St. George, Santa Clara. I'm doing one right now with Panda Express up in Brigham City, and it is a new concept. The public does figure it out. It is a little bit of a process. We have this do not block area, and that's where people that they've ordered their food, they're able to exit, and people are waiting. There'll be strong line indicators, there'll be arrows, and they will move forward as long as there's not a car blocking that area. It was a concern. It's been a concern. I've done Panda Expresses for 20 years, and the fact that they're entertaining one like this, it's something that they've had to wrap their heads around. They have 2,000 locations, but it's one that they're willing to pursue. And down in St. George, Santa Clara, if you were to visit, you'd see that it does work.
Is there any physical barrier between those 2 lanes, or is it just all markings?
It's markings.
I'll test it out with you.
Okay. You in one lane and I in the other? Okay.
Is there already, do you already know the restaurants that want to come in there?
Unfortunately, this is a build it and they will come.
I see.
We've had interest. We've hit soup, sandwich, drink, pharmacy. You know, there's active tenants that come and go. My partner and I, we've done development for 20 years. We've done buildings like this, anywhere from 4,000 to 6,000 feet. And it could be pizza. We just don't know what it's going to bear. So in our traffic study, we tried to anticipate a compromise that could work and avoiding leakage into the roads, because we've seen that, especially during COVID, a lot of drive-throughs were approved and they didn't have a way to mitigate that leakage. This seems to accommodate that, and we're able to get plenty of stacking for a variety of uses. If we get one that is more drive-through stacking demanding, we will encourage them to take the southwestern end. And then we may get somebody, I did one in Draper, it's called Lolo Hawaiian Grill. They have stacking for 18 cars. There's 2 in the drive-through. There's just not a lot of cars in the drive-through. So we'll try to be judicious in how we negotiate those deals as they come forward.
I'm curious, where is the businesses in St. George that has this crisscross?
Yeah, if I could zoom in on a Google Earth if you want. Will it let me do that? I don't know if I'm supposed to do that. Okay.
Or you can just tell me, I'm just curious. Next time I'm there, I want to go see it.
It's in Santa Clara over kind of by where the Walmart is on the south end.
Oh, okay,
Been there.
okay.
You've been there?
How was the traffic?
I think this is where one is.
That didn't take very long.
So they're entering here, there's a drive-through window on one side and then one over here on the other. They have this area that you're not supposed to crisscross. That's how this one worked. Not a lot of traffic down there. But for a Beans and Brew coffee house and then a Roxbury smoothie place, it works. My partner and I, we own a project where we did a Beans and Brew. It's not the double drive-through, but our office is actually here, so I see it every day. And here's the drive window. The parking that we have up against buildings are over here. We usually encourage the businesses to have their employees there. They're gonna be there for hours. Let's keep parking that's more accessible, available for customers. And it's worked very well for a Beans and Brew. And you're having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars. I'm not sure if this will show the Brigham City site because it's a new project. Yeah, so the deal I'm doing with Panda is actually going to be here. And this is the way they did it, where they're ordering here and there's one window and then they do a crisscross in this corner. Panda is actually asking how much more would we have to pay to take both drive-throughs. So, and that could potentially happen at our Pleasant Grove site. We just don't know. But our experience is most drive-through tenants, they're 1,600 to 2,000 square feet. There are a few that would want up to 4,000 feet, but they're less common.
What issues do you see with the entrance being on the southwest side of the property versus right off of
Not
Pleasant?
ideal. I would prefer to have it, over here if we could. I'd prefer, a nice circulation with this. Unfortunately, this property has parameters that we just have to work with.
We've been dealing with that for years.
Yeah, we came across that before.
Yeah, I have a Panda just right up here in this building, no drive-through, and I explored relocating them. AmSource wouldn't like that, but we explored one of these pads many years ago, and they decided just to stay. But I've driven by this site for a long time, and we're getting creative. The seller, they've been very anxious and cooperating to help us have the time. We've worked on this for over a year, and we've tried to mitigate every scenario to just maximize something that could work. Having the access here, the fire marshal, they'd prefer it to be a little wider, but we have a variance for that, for everything to get through. And that's really what this access is, just in case of a fire, they're able to pull through. And if for whatever reason the neighbor wants to block it, that's why this accommodation was granted.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And this is a public hearing, so the public is welcome to approach the podium. Seeing none, I will close it to the public and I will bring it up to the commissioners for discussion or a motion.
I'll make a motion on item number 3. Item number 3. All right, so I move the planning commission forward a positive recommendation of approval of the request of Acres Development Group LLC for a one-lot preliminary subdivision plat located at approximately 172 South Pleasant Grove Boulevard in the Commercial Cells 2 zone, and adopting the exhibits, conditions, and the findings of the staff report as modified by the conditions below, that the easement for the proposed emergency access from Pleasant Grove Boulevard is notated on the subdivision plat, installed according to the site plan, and maintained by the property owner, and that all final planning, engineering, and fire department requirements are met.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Fugel and a second by Commissioner Butler. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I'll make a motion on item number 4. I move the planning commission forward a positive recommendation of approval for the request of Acres Development Group LLC for a commercial site plan for commercial retail building located approximately 172 South Pleasant Grove Boulevard in the Commercial Cells 2 zone, adopting the exhibits and conditions and findings in the staff report, modified that the easement of the proposed emergency access for Pleasant Grove Boulevard is noted on the subdivision plat, is installed according to the site plan maintained by the property owner, and all other final planning, engineering, and fire department requirements are met.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Martineau and a second by Commissioner Patton. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Can we combine 5 and 6?
Okay, so we are going to hear item number 5 and item number 6 together. Public hearing to consider the request of Dana Fairbanks for a 4-lot preliminary subdivision plat named PG Business Park 3, Plat B, condo plat located at approximately 364 South, 700 West on approximately .87 acres in the manufacturing distribution zone. And item number 6, public hearing to consider the request of Dana Fairbanks for a commercial site plan to develop a 1-story multi-tenant warehouse building located at approximately 364 South, 700 West on approximately .87 acres in the manufacturing distribution zone.
All righty.
Hi, Jacob.
Thank you. So this next item is for Dana Fairbanks for a property located at approximately 364 South, 700 West, which is just on the other side of State Street. Actually, let me go here. I like this one better. So we got State Street right here, and then we're just up over here. So it's just on like 220 South, essentially on the other side of State Street, and it's this one right down here next to all these other warehouses. So starting off with the zoning map. So this property is in the manufacturing distribution zone, and the same with all of these properties over here to the west and to the south. And then we've got a bit of general commercial up here in this corner, and that fronts onto State Street. And then we've also got some condos over here and some other like townhomes over here, and all of those are in the Grove Grove Mixed Housing sub-district. And these were built after these warehouses were built. And then, as we can see here on the aerial map, this is a little bit better view, so you can see where all those condos are and the townhomes, and we've got some self-storage up here. So the applicant is intending to develop this property with more of what's already there. It's just going to be a 1-story multi-tenant warehouse building that will be split up with each unit being on its own lot, essentially because it's a condominium plat. This one has a little bit of an interesting history as well. So development for this whole area began back in about 2002 through 2006. So this one was first. Actually, let me get this out because it's brighter. So these properties were done first through PG Business Park 1, and then these ones were next for PG Business Park 2, and then these ones were after that for PG Business Park 3. Now, PG Business Park 3 included all of this, including the subject property at that time. And so when it was first approved, all of it was just the one property. And so it met all of the zoning ordinances back then. The same thing for tonight, essentially, because a lot of that stuff has already been taken care of. A lot of it's going to, be taken care of for tonight's plat as well. So going into the requirements that have already been met, so the manufacturing distribution zone requires the minimum lot area for each lot to be 1 acre, which isn't really possible because it's a condominium plat and you can't really make each unit a whole acre. So that was done with the previous version because this whole area was greater than 1 acre at that time. And then the minimum lot width was 100 feet, and the setback requirement is 25 feet from the front property line, which is up here. So all that has been taken care of, and the required landscaping is only required to be for the front yard areas and the side yard areas adjacent to a public street. So that's taken care of. And then otherwise, because it's in the manufacturing zone, there are no design requirements for any of the buildings. Even so, the proposed building will be about 22 feet tall. Actually, let me go to that. There's a landscape plan. They're going to do just like kind of rock mulch back here. So here's the elevation plans. So it's going to be about 22 feet tall, and it's going to be the exact same thing as all the other buildings that are already there. So kind of a metal building, and then on the front of the building, which faces the parking lot, they'll have about 7 feet of like brick for like a wainscot, essentially. Let's see here. Because this building is manufacturing in nature, there is a parking requirement for warehouses, manufacturing establishments, and all industrial uses to have 1 parking space for every 6,000 square feet of gross floor area, or 1 parking space per employee at the highest shift, whatever's going to be more restrictive, essentially. But we don't know how many employees there will be there, so we're going to go with the square footage for right now. And so in this case, technically only 3 parking spaces would be required, but the applicant did provide a few extra details for how much space would be used for like an office in the building, for like a mezzanine, and what the warehouse area would be. And so they provide 26 parking spaces for the building. 17 of those spaces, as you can see here on the site plan, kind of cross over the property line over here. And what the applicant's going to do for that is he's going to record an easement with this property over here at the same time as the plat is recorded, and that will make sure that all that parking will stay there, and that'll be good to go. Ultimately, though, staff recommends approval of the proposed plat and site plan, and I can take any questions if you have any.
What's it being used for right now? Is it for storage of like RVs and?
It's nothing right now, really. It's on the current subdivision plat, it was labeled as future development, and they're kind of using it for like a drainage easement, and there's technically a really little wetlands area right in the middle. I don't really think is there anymore because it's kind of just dirt there. So it's just vacant for right now, but with this, they're just going to put up the warehouse and just make it the same as all the other ones.
If there was a wetland there, shouldn't there be an environmental study to make sure it's not there anymore?
Commissioner, Chair and Commissioners, during the process of this review, we actually went through that process, talked to the Army Corps of Engineers, verified that, because their map shows that it is a wetland, and that's where that came about. That's what Jacob was referring to. In the process of talking to the Army Corps of Engineers, they mentioned that sometimes places that are made into a detention basin, they like flew over with LiDAR, if you're familiar with that. Basically, they just scan the earth and see something that looks like a depression that might have water in it, and it might be a wetland. And so they actually put that in as a level of a wetland. But in this case, It was a detention basin that was put in, like Jacob mentioned, as part of the other plat, and they're just relocating that and moving that to the south end of the property and still managing all that water. So there really is no wetland there. There never has been a wetland there. There won't be a wetland there. There are some in the neighborhood, so it's a very valid point to verify and check. But this particular property doesn't have that, and the Army Corps does not have a problem with the development that's happening.
Thank you, Aaron.
I have a question. So on the back side of it, is there a wall? Is there a wall there?
There is, actually. Thank you for reminding me. To kind of help out with a lot of this stuff, there is an existing vinyl fence right there that's 6 feet tall. And then just beyond that, there are covered parking spaces for the condos. And so that also kind of helps, with the visual from the condos to the manufacturing zone.
Any other questions for Jacob?
For the parking, what did you say he was going to get with the adjacent property owner?
So he is the adjacent property owner right now, but what he's just going to do is he's just going to record an easement on that property.
He is the property. Okay, I was going to say if we needed to make that a condition of approval here, we could, but if he owns both properties, he's probably going to give it to himself.
Yep.
It's gonna be a long meeting.
Yeah.
You can argue with himself.
Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you.
Is the applicant here? Do you want to come up to the podium? You don't have to, but. If you'll just state your name for the record.
My name is David Fairbanks. I'm sorry that Dana couldn't be here tonight, so he sent me. Yeah, what questions might you have for me?
Anyone have any questions?
Everything was straightforward what Jacob presented?
Okay.
Anything else you want to add to it?
Yeah, I just hope you approve it and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is a public hearing, so the public is welcome to approach the podium. Seeing none, I will close it to the public and I will bring it back to the commissioners for a discussion or a motion.
I'll make a motion unless somebody wants to talk. Perfect.
Go ahead, I'm ready.
I move the planning commission forward a positive recommendation of approval for the request of Dana Fairbanks to the for a 4-lot preliminary condominium plat located at approximately 364 South, 700 West in the manufacturing distribution zone, and adopting the exhibits, conditions, and findings of the staff report, and is modified by the condition that all final planning, engineering, and fire department requirements are met.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Fugel and a second by Commissioner Martineau. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I'll make a motion for item number 6. I move the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation of approval for the request of Dana Fairbanks for a commercial site plan for a single-story multi-tenant warehouse building located at approximately 346 South, 700 West in the manufacturing distribution zone, and adopting the exhibits, conditions, and findings of the staff report, and as modified by the conditions below, all final planning, engineering, and fire department requirements are met.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Patton and a second by Commissioner Butler. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Last item on the agenda tonight. A public hearing to consider the request of New Singular Wireless PCD DBA AT&T Mobility for a conditional use permit to allow a new commercial tower antenna for wireless communications on city property within Manila Park, located at approximately 1555 North, 100 East in the rural residential zone.
Righty. Thank you, Madam Chairman. So this last item for tonight is for a communication antenna located in Manila Park. It's a little hard to see on here, but it is right there. Can you see that? I guess you can.
The
so this-
flower, the little
Yeah,
flower?
the little cloud thing right there. Yeah, it's right next to like the fences for the baseball fields out there. Now, this item was heard by and approved by the Planning Commission back on March 24th, 2022 with conditions. And fun fact, this was my very first Planning Commission meeting here, so it was kind of fun. However, no work had been done for the conditional use permit, and the permit expired after 12 months of having no work being done there, which meant that they had to reapply before they began construction on their project. And so basically this is the exact same thing as last time, same conditions, same everything. Yeah, so just kind of as a refresher from last time though, the applicant is New Singular Wireless PCS LLC, and they want to obtain approval to construct a new single antenna attached to the light pole of one of the light structures for the baseball field at Manila Park, located at 1555 North 100 East Street, and also install a single equipment cabinet on the ground adjacent to the building, as well as like a diesel generator. It's going to look something like this. So here's 100 East, and then here's where that equipment is going to be, as well as where the tower, where the pole is currently and where the tower will be installed. So there's currently 2 different antennas from different providers on the premises, and so this would be the third entity that would use the city-owned light pole infrastructure and pair it with an antenna intended for wireless commercial communication. Zoning ordinances require that communication antennas or towers may be permitted in a residential zone only if it's on public property or property in conjunction with like a quasi-public use, such as a school or a park or a church or like a government property. Now, there's also a couple conditions of approval for this, such as the antenna can only have a maximum height of 100 feet, and that the pole needs to be set back at least like 225 feet from property lines. So this is what actually that's a zoom in of what the site will kind of look like. So they've got the generator right here, and then they've got the ground single equipment cabinet is what it's called, and then here's where the pole is right there. And so this is what the pole is going to look like essentially. So currently it looks like this side where it's like, you know, coming up here, and then there's just the lights, and this is what it's going to be going to. So this is pretty much as high as it can get. Now we don't count the lightning rod necessarily against the maximum height coverage, but all of these little radar things, that's where we would count the height against them. So they're going up as tall as they can, and the antenna is also located approximately 250 feet from the northeast boundary, and so the proposed steel monopole would meet the required setback. So, in order to mitigate the possible impacts of the structure, and in lieu of the safety and general welfare, conditions of approval need to be established for the proposed use and structure. The conditions are listed in City Code Section 10-1536, which I can head there really quick. 10-15-36. And so all of these requirements are required for the applicant to follow, essentially. So once again, we've got some setbacks, conditional use permit required, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I can go through some of this if you want to a little bit more, but ultimately all of these requirements are to be met. And then in addition to the conditions already established by code, a lease agreement would have to be prepared by staff and approved by City Council. And the lease agreement will contain a revised site plan and additional conditions. Furthermore, the Parks and Recreation Department has come up with 3 other conditions that would be beneficial for the future maintenance of the park, which include the installation of a site obscuring fence. So you see here, like where all of this stuff is, this would all be where the site obscuring fence should go. And the placement of geofabric along the path. We were kind of talking about this for the emergency access for one of the earlier items. But the geofabric would kind of come across here, across the landscaping, and so that way it will still look like grass, but it will be able to hold up the weight of any trucks or anything that have to Coordination with the Parks and Recreation staff at the time of installation as well is the other condition. The site obscuring fence would go around the entirety of the area where there would be ground equipment, so around this whole area. Which is located around the base of the pole and looks like this. And the fence would also need to be at least 8 to 10 feet tall, as the ground equipment is already roughly 10 and a half feet tall, so we need to cover up as much of that as we can. And so staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit with the following conditions. First, that the installation of a view obscuring fence is taken care of. Second, that there's placement of geofabric along the access path. Third, coordination with the Parks and Rec staff at the time of installation. 4, completion and approval of a lease agreement by City Council. And 5, all planning, engineering, and fire department requirements are met. And I can take any questions.
I'm sorry, Jacob, did you say how tall the fence is going around it?
It needs to be 8 to 10 feet tall.
Minimum of 8, maximum of 10. It's exactly what we heard last time. It was before your time, though.
Do we know how tall they want to do it, or, I mean,
Yeah,
minimum 8, maximum 10, are they gonna do 10?
I don't know. Yeah, do you know if they're doing an 8 or a 10? And the other question that came up last time is if errant baseballs get into that fence, how do people retrieve them? Because you don't want kids trying to climb over and getting in there. You know, is there any provision made to retrieve?
Can they have like a sign to call city? A little plaque saying if you want your balls back.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty fun, calling Parks and Rec out there. I don't know, those are good questions.
Or even on the ballpark side, there could be like a additional netting put up just on that side that can
Yeah.
help out.
I think a lot of those things, if the applicant doesn't already have an answer for them, those are things that we would put in the agreement that would have to go to City Council anyways. And we can take care of all that.
So we could
When
do,
you presented that these were the questions we had to, in additional.
so would we include
It's
those,
a conditional use.
would we include those as a conditional use?
Yeah, and you can add
It-
additional.
This is a
conditions, too.
conditional use.
This is a
it's
conditional use, so you can
so
add more if you want, yeah.
You can add a couple of,
Just addition-
conditions that are pertinent and not burdensome to the applicant. Thank you.
Can we ask him to paint strawberries all the way to the top?
That's the most important.
I'm paying my house on the way.
Any other questions for Jacob? Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you.
Is the applicant here today? Nope. This is a public hearing, so I will open it up to the public.
You're welcome to come back up.
Seeing none, I will close it to the public and bring it back to the commission for discussion or a motion.
The only question I have, do we add that, like netting, the additional netting and
I'd like to see something, just, I mean,
just out of security?
Not many kids hit a baseball that hard or that far, but.
That one,
If they get in there,
yeah,
I can see that being an issue.
yeah. It's the Sandlot all over again.
I literally watched that movie before I came here today.
It's gonna be a nice English Mastiff that lives in there. It's gonna
Yeah.
be great.
Yeah.
All right.
You doing a motion, Ron?
Sure, I can do a motion. I move the Planning Commission approve the request for Singular Wireless PCS LLC for approval of a conditional use permit for the installation of a tower for commercial communications and ground equipment on property located at 1555 North, 100 East Street, Manila Park, in the rural residential zone, and adopting the exhibits, conditions, and findings of the staff report, and is modified by the conditions below. 1, installation of a view obscuring fence. 2, placement of geofabric along the access path. 3, coordination with the Parks and Recreation staff at the time of installation. 4, completion and approval of a lease agreement by the City Council. 5, the cabinet height situation is addressed during the lease agreement process. 6, a netting is included to prevent stray baseballs from entering from the field side. And 6, all final planning, engineering, and fire department requirements are met.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Butler and a second by Commissioner Martineau. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. I would take a motion to approve the minutes from the February 13th, 2025 meeting.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes for February 13th, 2025 meeting.
I second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Patton and a second by Commissioner Martineau. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I
I
move we
will-
adjourn.
So moved.
Beat you to it.
I can see a reach.